Right, as you guys can tell from the title, this is merely just a video to share with you some of my findings that I have discovered in an attempt to find a kind of a solution or a less expensive solution for the Citadel primers that are light in color but not white, but are flat and go well with their contrast paints here. The reasoning for my searching for all this is that with the contrast paints, I finally decided to paint up my Zombicide miniatures. This guy is from Green Horde. And so I decided to start with Green Horde. I went to my local game shop and bought these 4 colors, thinking that they would work well. So I basically have 2 greens here, and then a blue and a brown. I thought that the greens obviously would go well with the skin tones. The blue could also be used as a skin tone or clothing. Basically these aren't cheap. So I started with these 4. And what I found was that my traditional gray, black primer followed by a gray was just too dark. That's what I used on these guys here, I believe, and I basically ended up just having to use regular paints. And then you can see here, this guy is painted up with the contrast green camo here. And it took me like 3 coats. So the contrast paint's working, but if I have to paint the guy 3 times, it's kind of negates the whole purpose of the contrast paints, being able to paint up a whole batch of zombies quickly. And you can see he is pretty dark. And then this is my the blue. And again, I had to paint him up 3 times, but he came out pretty well. I'm pretty happy with that. It's just a different type of skin tone here. So I'm going to show you what I found at the store. Again, these can be found at Lowe's and Home Depot. These are typical canned spray paints here. This first one is by Krylon, and this is Matte River Rock. It is really hard to find just plain primers or flat or matte paint and primers in any of the stores. They all want to be satin or things like that. So I found this at Lowe's, and I'll show you here now what it kind of looks like. The unpainted sections you can see, and it's not completely flat. You can see there is kind of a shine to it, a sheen. But the green went over top of this, and I believe this green was my contrast orc flesh. So you can see he came out very green. Obviously I still have a lot left to paint him, but I wanted you to be able to see what the primer color looked like, and then what a single layer, pretty thick, but a single layer of the contrast paints looked like. I also found, while I was there, this stuff. Rust-Oleum Universal Advanced Formula Matte Paint and Primer in 1, and it's French Cream. Now you can see the lid looks pretty white to me, but it's meant to be an off-white, which I think is helpful because I just cannot get white spray paint to work as a primer. It just does not go on nice and evenly. It beads up or whatever you want to call it. So I wanted to give this a try, and I figured my zombies, which I have hundreds of between my various Zombicide campaigns. So this slightly off-white, which is very similar to one of the Citadel contrast primers that they've just come out with that are like 20 bucks a bottle. These are like $4 a bottle. So one thing I did want to point out, though, I don't know if it's this nozzle or if it's the paint or the Rust-Oleum, but and I shook this thing up for 10-15 solid minutes before I sprayed it. But the first time I sprayed it, it came out very thick. It came out like paint. And you can see here on this miniature, if you look at her base, you can see how it kind of splattered there. And I was like, oh my god, I just messed up my miniatures. So I sprayed it off into the grass, and it worked out a little better. Let me get her to focus here. So there you can see this is the French Cream, and now this is pretty close to being white, but it's not quite, you know, I wouldn't paint stormtroopers like this. But what I then did was just took a Agrax Earthshade wash and put it over her skin, and I think that's pretty close. You know, it's really not that bad. It looks even better on the runner here. He's got a lot of skin on the torso, and you can see that, you know, that's fine for me. I'm not looking for show quality here. I'm just looking for something to liven up my Games of Zombicide a little bit. Obviously, I'm going to paint his pants and his feet, but throw a little blood and maybe some of the open wounds there. But this is pretty darn close to, you know, that. If you take a look at it on the box there, that's the reference I'm going off of. So this French cream worked out better than expected. There is one more can that I saw there and just didn't want to purchase at the time, but it was a camo and it said ultra flat. And I asked the guy at the paint counter, I said, is there really such a thing as ultra flat? He said, no, not really. But I'm gonna paint up the rest of these. You can see here that, oh, I wanted to give you a comparison of how the blue turned out, because the blue really has been troublesome for me, and that's the reason I went out to find a really light colored primer, is that the blue was so hard to come through. It's just so thin, I guess. And you can see this guy here is like several coats on a dark wash, and this guy here is, let me look at his back, just a single coat of the blue over top of the matte river rock, which kind of has a brown tone to it. It's okay, but I'm really not super happy with it. I don't know what it is about this contrast Griff Charger, you know, it says gray, but you know, it looks blue to me in the top. What do you think? You know, it seems a lot darker in here in the pot than it does coming out here. So maybe that's my problem. Maybe I just need to go find a different blue. But just for comparison's sake, here is the Creed camo on a darker primer, and here's the Creed camo. I really like this guy. I mean, this guy's okay. He's just really dark. But this guy, you know, he's just the right color. That's really what I'm looking for, but I just didn't want all my guys to be green, so, or the same color green at least. So there you go. Again, Rust-Oleum Matte French Cream and Krylon Matte River Rock are right now doing a pretty decent job as alternatives to the Citadel contrast primers that run for like 20 bucks a bottle. If I get the camo one and test that out, I will post a quick video on that, and I am gonna go ahead and paint these up tonight and possibly just throw a quick little video on the end here so you guys can see what they looked like after several layers of contrast paints. Definitely gonna be adding in the brown, probably some blue and green, you know, into the clothing. So we'll see what that looks like right now. So here you can see a mostly final product, you know, with all the rest of the colors. It didn't turn out too bad, but again, I'm really having a hard time finding good coverage out of these contrast paints. Like you can see here that, you know, her dress just, you know, looks see-through. These three guys right here were all done with either contrast paints or washes, except for like the black and the blood from the blood gods. Again, I'm just looking for a way to paint these guys up quickly, because they're just secondary figures, you know, in Zombicide. You pull them out a dime a dozen during the game. I used some other base colors on the goblin zombies here, but you know, for the most part, the primer works well as a light off-white colored primer. I will post a link in the video description to them at Lowe's, but I'm sure you can find them anywhere. These are name brand Krylon and Rust-Oleum. So I just wanted to let you guys see what the outcome looked like. And if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them below. Again, thanks for watching. I know this is kind of different than what I normally post, but I felt like it might be helpful. So hopefully you got some use out of it. Thanks. Have a great night.